So first of all, I want to introduce you to our first speaker for the day, Jorge Lanza from the CEO of Exolum. Exolum is as I'm sure he'll tell you, is a new brand name for CLH. And just a little bit about Jorge. He's the CEO of the Exolum Group, based in Madrid. And he graduated as an industrial engineer from Madrid University and has an MSc in engineering from Stanford University. He has a deep knowledge of the oil and energy industry that he's had over 22 years in the petroleum business value chain, including refining, trading, supply, and sales and marketing. He joined CLH in February 2016 after an extensive career in BP. In BP, he's been a refinery manager. He finished BP as executive president of BP Spain and Portugal, and before that he was refinery manager of several refineries in the US and one in the Castellón refinery in Spain. He has a lot of experience in operational management, strategy, and corporate roles, and he's going to talk today about Exolum's strategy to adapt to the energy transition. Jorge, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, hi everyone, and thanks very much, Mike, for the introduction. First of all, let me thank StocExpo for inviting me to this event and giving me the opportunity to open this digital conference. Hopefully next year we'll meet physically and not through a screen. So in my brief presentation, what I'll try to do is plant a few seeds of what I think will be the terminal of the future, the tagline of this conference. I don't have all the answers, but I'll try to explain what we're thinking of doing or preparing ourselves, or how we're preparing ourselves for the energy transition. And hopefully, I'll as I said, I'll just plant a few seeds. We can get in more detail in the panel discussion later on in the afternoon. So first of all, let me introduce Exolum, which is really a new brand in the industry. So who are we? We are the same company, as Mike said, formerly known as CLH with a new name. The truth, though, is that CLH has evolved quite a bit in the last few years. The company has 94 years of history, but it was only 6 years ago when we started to diversify away from Spain, both geographically and in terms of the services we provide. We're now present in 8 countries, and our most recent milestone was the acquisition of Interterminals in Northwest Europe, with which we acquired 50 new terminals. So with that, I think we are now European leaders in terms of storage capacity and pipeline mileage. But more importantly, we aim to be leaders in creating value for our stakeholders, being our customers, our primary ones. So you can see here in the screen, roughly 68 terminals now, most of them in Europe, and 6,000 kilometers of pipelines, which for a European scale is pretty big. So when we purchased Interterminals back last November, we had, as part of a deal, to change the Interterminals brand into a new one. The obvious one was CLH, but we thought we took the opportunity to actually kind of open a new chapter in the history of the company and create a new brand, a more modern brand that is going to be the single one that we operate with, under which we're going to be operating in the whole globally in the whole world. And it kind of symbolizes our commitment to evolve and grow with the sustainable energy transition beyond the traditional hydrocarbon oil business. So the change is both is important both internally as externally, as we wanted to also break some internal inertia as we try to reinvent the company with the energy transition. So that's, I guess, Exolum. That's our new brand, as I said. And now let me talk about the topic of the conference, the terminal of the future. I wanted to split the conversation in 2 parts. One is what are we going to be doing going forward, and a second one is how are we going to do it. And I would like to start with the how first. So how we want to operate going forward. In the last few years, I think all of us, every company in pretty much in the world is experiencing an increasing demand from all stakeholders to comply with tighter ESG standards, demanding higher levels of compliance and conducting our operations in a more sustainable way. And I believe actually COVID has accelerated this trend. Our industry, generally speaking, is pretty old school, I would say, and I believe there's some adjustments we all need to make. I think for many years we focused a lot on safety, and I think pretty much every company we keep saying safety first, and I think it's the right thing to do. We've made a lot of improvements on that front, but I think there's a lot more under the ESG agenda. So firstly, I mean, what are we doing in Exolum? Firstly, we're committed to reducing our environmental impact. And 3 years ago, we pledged to reduce our CO2 emissions by 50% by year 2025. And so reducing half our emissions. The biggest source of emissions in our company is the ones generated by the power that we consume, particularly in our pump stations that we use for the pipeline network. That's pretty much 40-50% of our CO2 emissions. And 3 years ago, we decided we need to go greener, and we are now building solar panels at our facilities to generate our own power. So that's one way to reduce emissions. Another example of this is we're using artificial intelligence to optimize how we manage the energy consumption throughout our network and trying to minimize that. So that's just 2 examples. There's some others, and we can expand that later on during the panel discussion. But CO2 emissions is obviously big in our agenda now. Not only that, I mean, in terms of environmental impact, we're trying to minimize water usage. That's probably more relevant for Southern Europe, where we don't get a lot of rain. But we have a few initiatives, on this front. One that I'd mention is we, trying to use the little rain that we get, use it for our, emergency drills, our firefighting drills. We using that water that we capture from when it rains. As I said, trying to minimize the use of water. In relation with safety, I think there's not a ton new. I mean, we just need to keep improving on the track record we've built over the years. A lot more focus on cybersecurity, and I would say, from my point of view, if we go back to the normal safety that we used to, personal process safety, I might be, concerned with the knowledge transfer as we bring in a lot more younger people they don't have the experience in the industry, and with all the automation, many times I perceive they don't have the risk awareness that the old people do. So there's a lot we're doing in terms of knowledge transfer to make sure that the new generation of employees really will understand the risks and the controls that we need to put in place to make sure that we don't have any incident. Then there's another thing I wanted to talk about in terms of ESG, which is the more soft skills, or how we operate in terms of D&I. Again, our industry is male dominated. Traditionally, we have male people in the top jobs. And I think we need to make a lot more space for gender diversity to start with. So don't give up on 50% of the talent pool. And important at Exolum that we give women the same opportunities that we provide to men, the same positions with the same responsibility. And I'm referring particularly to technical and operational jobs that enable these women later on to aspire to the top jobs. Traditionally, we've had women in other areas of the company, human resources, financial services, etc., not so much on technical and operations, and I think that's something we're trying to promote at the company. Not only that, from a soft skills perspective, we're working on new ways of working, trying to copy from other industries new ways of doing things, agile methodologies as an example, to help us innovate and evolve faster and better. Not only, we've applied that to digital initiatives and not trying to expand that to also to our traditional business, this way of developing projects in a more agile and faster way. And finally, as always, we need to work on creating stronger connections with the communities where we operate. And in turn, I'm hoping that will strengthen our relationship with our employees and customers, that will feel more engaged as the company does more for the communities. So I know there's a lot on under this ESG agenda. We at Exolum, we've adopted the SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, from the from the United Nations, just to help us, guide us through this journey. And one thing that worked pretty well for us 3 years ago is we adopted one of these ESG frameworks that are out there. We're using GRESB, but there are many others. So I encourage, if you haven't done it already, I encourage you to use one of those to help you improve. The same way in the 90s, we all, adopted ISO certifications. I think there is a drive now to improve on these other things. And this framework, as I said, has been helpful for us. And now we have pretty clear and specific goals to improve on how we conduct our business. That, as I said before, I think there's still a lot more work to do that the society now is requesting or asking us to deliver on. So that's the kind of the first part of my speech, my presentation, is how we want to conduct our business going forward. In terms of what we're gonna do, I guess I would start by saying that the good news for me is that not everything is about hydrogen or batteries. There's still a lot more to do in the within the liquid storage business. And here I'm pointing out a few trends that I see. None of them are probably new to you, but I think important to mention that there's a lot more demand for more storage and for our services. So one of these trends is biofuels, eco-fuels. That demand keeps growing and getting more sophisticated with the use of new raw materials, blending components, and even new processing units like to produce SAF, sustainable aviation fuel. All of that at the end of the day requires new tankage, new capacity. So I think there's more business for companies like us. Also, with COVID, we are experiencing some of the companies we deal with, they're aiming for shorter supply chains. They don't want to rely on really far away countries, or not completely. And that is driving, the help, will help creating, more local hubs, maybe smaller, but again, will require new capacity closer to home. Another trend that I see is big international oil and petrochemical companies. They're focusing more and more their CapEx programs on new businesses, on renewables, hydrogen, etc. And with that, some of them thinking about contemplating carving out some of their existing infrastructures like tank farms and refineries, marine facilities, terminals, and they're thinking about selling those to companies like us. That will present some opportunities. There are several tons that have been done recently, along these lines. The chemicals and aviation sectors, both of them, their demand keeps growing. Exolum is particularly interested in the aviation business, where we manage many tank farms and hydrants at many airports. And after COVID, we still believe that the aviation sector will keep growing the same way as chemicals. So opportunities there. And finally, always opportunities to improve our existing business through the use of technology, both driving more efficient and more reliable operations, and also developing new applications to better integrate our business with our customers. And I can give more examples later, but I think most of you are familiar with the use of robots or drones for inspecting and cleaning tanks. We're using also satellite pictures and treating those with machines to actually do the surveillance of our pipelines that before we were doing with helicopters or even walking on top of the pipelines. There are more efficient ways to do that, and with that become more efficient. So as always, I think we'll need to be more flexible and adaptable as the world gets more sophisticated, and I think the whole industry is moving along those lines. But going back to my previous comment, there's a lot more than hydrogen and batteries. There's a lot to do in our traditional business. In terms of new things, I mean, that's part of the job. The other part is preparing ourselves for the future. So what are we doing at Exolum? So we are slowly diversifying away from, as I said before, from the traditional oil business. But we're trying to do that in a prudent way because it's not really clear, at least in my mind, exactly which technology is going to be the one that you know, the prevalent technology of the future. We are expanding ourselves in the chemical space. I know that is not a completely new business, but Exolum or CLH before, we were not particularly present in that market. With interterminals, we're growing in that space, and we want to keep growing. I think also chemicals will present new opportunities with renewable or you know, biochemicals. I don't know what the word is, the new word, probably renewable chemicals, but that also will be you know, a growing trend of new raw materials or new treatments that will need new tank capacity. Hydrogen is the topic in fashion. I guess there's going to be another session later on in the conference about hydrogen. From our point of view, it's not economical yet. It's not yet a credible alternative to the traditional fuels, but we believe at Exolum that hydrogen will play a part in the future energy mix in 10-15 years to decarbonize some of the sectors that are difficult to electrify. So we want to play a role in that space, in the development of the industry, and we are already participating in some projects in Spain to produce green hydrogen using solar power. I personally believe that the most efficient way to participate is through consortiums that team up governments with private investors like us. I think together we can minimize the risks, invest at scale, you know, bigger projects, and accelerate the technology development that is needed. But as I said, this is more planting seeds now for the future, as I don't see it economically right now, but we need to do, you know, start taking some steps in that direction. Next, circular economy is another unstoppable trend, and that is growing, and we Exolum want to play a role in it, and we already have a couple of projects in this space. So we're trying to leverage the positions we're in, the geographies, the locations where we're present, and the know-how, doing new things. And in this space, I mean, it's probably going to be new products, be it water treatment or residue treatment. It's also, I mean, we're seeing with biofuels the need for pre-treating new raw materials, and we want to be in that space. So this business, I think, will require different activities to what we're used to. So it's more than the just typical storage and handling that we've done in the past, but something that some of our customers are already inquiring us about, and we're willing to play in that space and develop new capabilities. So that's something we're also doing. And finally, in terms of new things, we created Exolum Ventures. I guess it was 18 years and a half ago, and this was a way to foster innovation within the company. And also we team up with some other entrepreneurs or startups that can help us innovate faster and better. So let me give you a couple of examples of things we've done in this year and a half. We recently launched Avicor. It's probably not known outside Spain. It's a new digital business that we launched that is built on top of the infrastructures that we have at some Spanish airports. So with this digital application, customers and consumers that fly out of Madrid or Barcelona, no matter what flight they take, they can, when they book the flight, when they purchase the ticket through an online travel agent like Expedia, Kiwi.com, etc., they can choose when they purchase their ticket to actually fuel their seat with sustainable aviation fuel. So it's quite an innovative way of selling, I guess, the green credentials. And what we do is, once we get that order, we make sure that in that flight, because we are actually supplying, doing the into plane in Madrid and Barcelona, we make sure that that flight has that SAF, sustainable aviation fuel. So it's a way to leverage our position at our airports and actually contribute to the green agenda as well. Another example of Exolum Ventures is another project to build truck parking lots in our terminals when we have spare land, and also you can book those parkings through a phone app. So again, it's just merging our traditional infrastructure with new digital applications. These two examples probably they're not going to change our P&L dramatically, but I think they're helping us in becoming more entrepreneur and just helping us also get involved with other companies outside that have different skill set and can help us in that transition to the future. So as you can see, we're thinking beyond the traditional hydrocarbons, the oil business, but in a prudent way. As I said before, we are going to be doing the traditional bulk liquid storage and are moving stuff through our pipelines for many years to come. So just to finish off, as a way of summary, I would say that the terminal of the future, I think, will be operated in a more sustainable way. The how is going to be different from along the lines of what I mentioned before, and it will probably be a lot more than just tanks. Handling and storing liquids will remain our key activity for many years to come, but progressively we'll be evolving beyond this. And in any case, well, I believe that we have many more successful years ahead of us. So that's it. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present Exolum's view of the terminal of the future.
Okay, thank you, Jorge. So we have about 5 minutes before the next speaker. I was very interested to hear about the aviation, the sustainable aviation fuel. I don't know whether you would want to answer this, but I'm just out of interest. How much more do people have to pay to use the sustainable jet fuel at the moment? I mean, I know it will come down and it will be. But there must be, at the moment, some sort of increase in prices to use the sustainable aviation fuel. Can you give us some idea? Is it like 10% more, or?
Well, actually,
50% more?
I mean, okay, we are an infrastructure company, and we don't buy or sell the product. In the case of Avicor, what we do is sell the green certification. But we are involved in prices. So trying to answer your question, it is a lot more expensive at the moment because there's not enough supply, and as demand keeps growing, at the moment it's still very expensive. So it's about 2-3 times depending the normal price. So it is a lot more expensive. But for instance, this Avicor platform that I was talking about, the product is not ours. It's really the oil companies that sell the product. What we provide is the end consumer the ability to pay that extra to make sure that his part of the ticket, his or her part of the ticket, is green. And for instance, for a Madrid-London flight, if you pay 25 euros, you can make sure that you cut your emissions by 50%. Is what I'd say, just order of magnitude.
Thank you very much. Now, just looking to see what questions. We still have a couple minutes more. We have a question here from Mr. A. I assume it's Mr. Maybe it's not. It's someone called HM Kong, who says, "Good morning and thanks for the presentation. For the existing tanks of fossil fuel products to shift to clean energy storage, are the storage assets easily reusable or reconfigured? Or the capex required for that may be too big and maybe better to build a greenfield terminal? Thanks."
Yeah, well, probably not build a greenfield terminal, because the terminal is a lot more than just tanks. Just all the facilities, the common facilities you need to actually connections, pipelines, etc., jetties. You still want to keep those. So the answer, I don't think, is a black or white answer. I think it really depends. Some of the big tanks that we, like crude tanks, they're going to be very difficult to repurpose. So most likely you'll have to is, remove those, scrap those, and build newer tanks for the new raw materials that normally, and our experience is the industry is requiring smaller tanks and maybe with different specifications, so different metallurgy, or you need heated tanks, or if in the case of chemicals, each chemical component needs it comes with its own specificity. So I think there's not a straight black or white answer, but I mean, I think we will repurpose a lot of the gas oil tanks. Those can be repurposed for new products, but most likely we'll have to build new tanks in our existing facilities.
Thank you, Jorge. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I'd say there's a bit of a mismatch between what's likely to be required in the future. I totally agree with you that this bulk liquid is still going to be a major influence for everybody. But maybe the 10 to 20,000 cube tanks are going to be much more useful than the 60 to 100,000 cube tanks, or the crude tanks, as you talked about. So, okay, thanks very much. Maybe one more question, a short one from Palak Mehta. Any plan to set up an LPG LNG terminal? Yes.
We're not planning on that at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's it for the moment. Yeah, a little bit more on Carlos Copita asked for what do you mean by infra carve-outs? But I think you sort of explained that, didn't you? But maybe you could just
Yeah, I mean, but just some oil companies, I won't name any, but there have been some deals already been done, and some of, companies like us, competitors of Exolum, have already entered some of these deals. That a deal by which, a refining company decides to sell, for instance, the tank farm and the jetties to a company like us, infrastructure company. So we operate it and we lease it back to the oil company. With that, they get a ton of cash they can deploy into renewables or whatever they want to do. And we have a long-term commitment with the refinery, such that we operate and maintain those facilities.
Okay, Jorge, thank you very much. Well, I think that's it. I would go to the next presentation.
Thank you all.